For Leah Remini's documentary series, Scientology and the Aftermath. Today, we're going to be breaking down...
So, yeah.
And the fact that she surpassed 2 of the guards, and the fact that she said, oh my gosh, they're already probably looking for me. I'm like, whoa, it's been like 10 minutes.
Which I feel like they were, because why else would the second guard stop them, right? They definitely knew she was missing.
They work fast, and they really do have eyes on you at all times. Which is... oh my gosh, that just scares me so much to even think about. But she was in that trunk for like 2 hours.
Which, where was he going? Like,
I don't
he was
know.
driving for 2 hours.
Yeah, I think that they said like near Burbank. And I think that...
Church of Scientology and Burbank are close together.
It's true.
You know, so I don't know.
There's traffic, guys. It's LA. there probably was 2 hours of traffic. Like, let's be honest. But she... the quote that I found really, really jarring was when she said when she was in that trunk, she felt like she could breathe again.
Right.
Which is like, you're in a trunk.
Where you don't know where you're going.
And there's no air in that trunk. Like, I know she was being, like symbolic and metaphorically speaking, but it's like, wow, the fact that this contained a terrifying place is where you felt the most free that you ever have been. Like,
crazy.
Wow. What a crazy way to have that weight lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah.
And so then the guy gets to his girlfriend's house, which I just really loved this part.
Me too.
And instead of like being mad or freaking out, he was like scared, but offered her a ride somewhere.
I think I would too. You know what I mean? Just because
I don't know that I would. I'm not gonna lie.
I think that if I could see, because I'm sure when she jumped out of the car, it was fear and relief on her face.
Yeah.
And I think if I knew someone was, you went through all that, you jumped in, especially my trunk, because she'd have been crammed, because there's a lot of stuff in my trunk. But if she'd have fit into my trunk and I would have opened, I'd have been like, I would have immediately thought, what can I, why? What is going on in your life that you feel? Now, on the flip side, there would have been a side of me that thought maybe I was being set up. But I think that she probably got out with that look on her face that was like, hey, because especially when she follows up with, is there an airport around?
Right.
Then she's escaped some situation. I genuinely hope that they're still friends.
Me too. I want to interview that guy. Yeah. Please get him on here.
How did you feel?
Like, I want to put him in danger, but I also really want to talk to him.
I wanted to see the girlfriend. I wanted her to talk about the look on the girlfriend's face. Was she instantly like, oh my God, or she's like, wait, who is in your trunk?
It's like just such a bizarre thing. But I guess you're right. Like, just the look on her face probably said it all. And if he did work with her like all day, he knows that
recognized
she's not
just
her.
Some
random
He probably thought somebody put her in there is probably what he thought.
I probably would have, honestly. You never know. You can't trust anybody.
Yeah.
But thankfully, she goes to the Burbank airport and she calls her dad and, goes to live with him in Portland. And then he makes her go back.
So I'm watching this, and like you said, it was like one of those movies, because I'm like, oh, this is going to be one of those happy reunions. Totally forgot he was a member of Scientology. So when they said he made her go back, my heart literally sunk.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know that your daughter was so desperate to jump into a trunk and then send her back?
Thankfully, when they first said that, I was like, he made her go back. But it was go back to, because there's 2 different things that we learned. There's to, I think blow out versus route out. And routing out is the sort of, more respectful way. So you're not an enemy of the church, which, like, granted, is probably, she probably could not have talked to her dad if she wouldn't have routed out.
Right. But, at the same time, even though it's the more respectful way, so you're not an enemy. You're not an enemy because now anything that you say, they have this video where they can say, no, she said the opposite. It's a total, and she had to sign a non-disclose agreement.
Yes.
So it's a total way to be like, nope, she's lying.
It's like they're blackmailing her. Just like the whole process is blackmail.
But her dad had to know that. And to want her to go back and do that anyway is still weird to me.
I'm wondering, I wish we would have heard if he was still a Scientologist.
To this day, right?
And I feel like he might not be, honestly, because they're talking a lot about her brother and how they kind of turned him against her, but they didn't really follow up about her dad. So I'm wondering if he's still a member, and I'm wondering if we'll ever sort of find that out.
I hope so. I would like to know that too.
Yeah, because that was like a question that I would have liked answered. But the other thing we learned there was that it can take months for this routing out process to kind of go in effect. Which is just another way of just completely loading up this process was just as painful and horrible, as it can possibly be, because that's how they operate.
Yeah. And I like the video that they did show of the one person routing out, because the guy didn't even get to finish the question. He was like, do you? Yep.
Yes.
Did you? Yep.
Love him.
All that. Yeah.
Great.
Yep. Like, just let me out.
It's so fake. And any body language expert, or you, because you watch crime shows, can tell that it's fake.
Exactly.
Come on. I did really like the fact that we just get the little tidbit of Leah offering her job after she escaped.
Yes.
Leah is like the mother of all the ex-Scientologists.
I did like how she was like, when the church Scientology was like, yeah, Valerie's being paid $1,000 a week, and Leah was like, that's absolutely false. She gets a lot more.
I know. like she's so good. I love how they kind of insert those little moments of like humor and just upliftingness of it. But unfortunately, it's not like all good. Still, she's still being followed.
Yeah.
People are waiting outside of her apartment to like serve her different papers. They're stalking her on Instagram. It's just so awful what these people go through. Even after they leave, they're still not free of it.
Right. And it's weird because, it's, I think it would be easier. Like, my mom used to always say, you catch more flies with honey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it would be, even though I know there's still people, like I said, joining, I just think that they could, if they were doing work in the community, if they were helping people, like you could still increase your membership.
Well, I think that they do kind of do those planted activities. They're like, oh, look at us.
Have you been to one?
This.
I've been to one.
I have not been to one of the churches.
I'm gonna take you to one. Are you ready?
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I literally will not do it. My sister wanted to like just go in the one in Hollywood. I was like, no, I'm staying outside.
No,
I'm too scared. I've watched 2 whole seasons of the show. I'm not doing it.
You'll have a new insight.
No.
Okay, that was a hard no. She's like, no, I don't.
Sorry.
Nothing you gonna say.
I've been taught better than that. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up kind of the meat of this episode. Is there anything else you kind of want to bring up before we move on?
Just the news that they did open a brand new facility, and it's one of those.
Yeah, we got the whole music and everything.
I feel like a wiggle. But so, like I said earlier, that I feel like they're still growing.
Yeah.
They just opened up a brand new facility in Detroit with this kind of the motto is like take back Detroit, because it's an impoverished community. And I was texting my friend, I was like, did you know that they opened a new facility in Detroit? And he was like, and he lives in my hometown, which is Denver. But he's like, well, yeah, in the hood in Denver, they've opened one, which again, wrong, but genius. Yeah. Because if you go to these neighborhoods that are struggling financially and you can offer this way out, genius. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's genius.
They know exactly how to target, who to target, when to target. Like they know everything.
I feel like somebody must have worked in marketing. That's
absolutely. They're master marketers. It's a whole shtick. I also do want to kind of introduce our special segment.
Yes.
So what I want to do is every week highlight a different celebrity Scientologist, because we've learned through past seasons that the celebrity sort of community is a huge aspect of this entire organization. Obviously, Leah Remini is a huge star and is an ex-Scientologist, but there are still a lot who are kind of still in this church. I use the term loosely, but that's what they call themselves.
But they have scriptures now. They didn't used to have scriptures. All right. They're moving along.
So this week I want to highlight John Travolta, who, if you're not familiar, I don't know how, but he is a Oscar nominee. He's known for movies like Saturday Night Fever, Hairspray, Grease, Pulp Fiction, everything. He's done it all. He's actually been he's practiced Scientology since 1975.
What, are you serious?
Yeah, that's a long time.
Really long time.
Very long time. And he started when he was given the book Dianetics, which is their sort of like, central feature, while filming the movie The Devil's Reign in Mexico.
The Devil's Reign.
Yeah.
Very, very fitting.
Yeah. I want to know. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I want to know who gave him the book, who did this to him.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I always love to hear about the celebrities that are in Scientology, because once you take a look back at them, it's like, again, I understand the lore, you know what I mean? Especially if you're coming out here and you want to be in the business. And then you hear all these stories about, here's a guy whose career was just kind of and then after Scientology, it was like, oh my, you know what I mean? Like
using us as
when
models.
when you chase the dream, the road doesn't matter. I just want, you know what I mean? So I get it. But I still love John Travolta. I love Staying Alive.
I know. And it's the thing is they're not necessarily even bad people. It's anyone can be brainwashed, and that's kind of what I've learned, you know, from this show and from the other cult shows I've watched. It's like you think that it can never happen to you, but it's not true. Like it can happen to anyone, as sad as it is. So be careful out there.
But as long as you watch this AfterBuzz, we can promise this won't happen to you.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Before we go really fast, I want to do predictions are a little harder since this is obviously you know, a reality sort of show. But they did give us a little bit of a teaser at the end of this episode, and they kind of were touching on the private investigators that the organization has. So I'm excited to learn about that. And also at the sort of top of the episode when they were giving a sort of overview of the season, it sounds like they're going to tackle a lot about the money aspect of it all this season.
Which was a big deal when they got that tax exemption, right? So that's because, I mean, technically, I don't know. I mean, I thought I'll probably have to look this up so I know for next week. But I thought in order to get tax exemption and to be a church, you had to have like some form of like if you're Buddhist, you have what is it, Muhammad? Like, I don't know how all these religions work, but I know everybody has like a specific thing they believe in or a specific deity that they pray to. Who do Scientologists pray to? Is it L. Ron? I don't know how that works.
Maybe we'll learn later this season.
We're going to try to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll look up the rules because it is interesting. And I think that they're definitely trying to make it so that doesn't happen anymore. And they do have to pay taxes. Right. So, you know, their resources are kind of depleted and they're going to try to kind of cut off the head of the snake in that way, so to speak. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm really, really excited for this season.
Me too.
Yeah, make sure to leave a comment, you know, on our YouTube page, and because I want to continue the conversation. We're also on iTunes, Spotify. You know, give us 5 stars on iTunes because the other ones don't work for some weird reason. But yeah, where can they find you?
You can find me on all things social media at JRayTheFanatic.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Elphaba_Ann and on Instagram at Taylor_Gates_. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.